And we are live on Facebook. Scott, take it away.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our 1 Million Cups Fairfax meeting. We are so excited and thrilled to have you. Very excited to have some new faces with us, as well as returning folks. So we are delighted to have everyone. So 1 Million Cups. We are sponsored by the Kauffman Foundation. So the Kauffman Foundation works with communities in entrepreneurship and education to increase opportunities that allow all people to learn, to take risks, and to own their own success. So we're very grateful to the Kauffman Foundation for their sponsorship. And if you haven't already done so, download the 1 Million Cups app and then create an account so you can sign in, because we want to be able to know who's at these meetings so we can follow up with you to be a resource to you, as well as to make sure that we're connected. So feel free to select the Fairfax event and check in for our 1 Million Cups meeting. And I'd love to introduce you to our wonderful organizing team and our brand ambassadors. So if you are interested in continuing to grow in your entrepreneurship, grow your community, grow your network, we would love to have you as a part of either our organizing team or our brand ambassadors. So please feel free to reach out to one of the organizing team if you're interested to learn more. All right, and we have a national and a local mission. So our goal is to make sure that we are reaching entrepreneurs at the local level, making sure that we are providing a consistent educational experience for every 1MC presenter here at Fairfax, but we're also committed to that nationwide. So we love highlighting the uniqueness and the value proposition of each of the startup communities, or each of the startups in our community. All right, and these are our key pillars. These are the values that we hold. So everything that we do through 1 Million Cups are presentations. We're not focused on pitches of your company. We want to work through different kinds of problems and challenges and focus on opportunities that are in front of us. We prioritize authentic connections, right? We want to know each and every one of you in this meeting, not just simply networking, but focusing on connecting with one another. We are run for the community, by the community, all of us in the organizing team, the brand ambassadors. We're all a part of this community of local entrepreneurs, and we are inclusive. We want to have everyone be a part of what we're doing. So we are radically and intentionally inclusive. All right, and then our sponsor, we have two space sponsors, if I'm correct. We have Office Evolution, and Office Evolution is located in Tyson's Corner. It is run by John Yu, who has been a fantastic partner to 1 Million Cups. And we also have Eddie with the Mason Enterprise Center, and they sponsor our in-person meetings, which are at the first week. So every first week of the month, we meet in person through the Mason Enterprise Center. So we'd love to have you join us for that. And then coffee sponsor is myself, and I'm happy to talk to anyone who's interested in what I'm working on. I'm working with a startup hedge fund called Orca. So if anyone's interested, feel free to reach out to me. All right, and just a few tips and tricks for how we run our virtual meetings. Most of us, I'm sure, are aware of this after COVID, but use the hand wave icon to announce to the moderator that you have a question, and then we will make sure to call on you. If the moderator says your name, make sure that you unmute your microphone, say your name and who you're with so we can know who you are, and then ask your question and make your comment, and then put your microphone back on mute when you're finished speaking. All right, and so just reviewing this again, best practices, please introduce yourself. And then a couple of tips for how we want to make sure that we are coming across so that we are being radically inclusive. Instead of saying, I disagree with your last point, perhaps consider saying something more like, I have a slightly different perspective, which I think may help. So the method of yes and rather than but. And I appreciate what you just said. Thank you for the context. Would you mind clarifying X, Y, or Z? These are all best practices that we're going to put in place. And with that, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Jen Dalton, who is the head, the CEO of BrandMirror, for her wonderful thoughts and presentation. We are so excited to have Jen, who's been a very loyal member of 1 Million Cups, presenting to us today. So with that, Jen Dalton.
Thank you much, Scott. I really appreciate it. Welcome to everybody. Great to see so many familiar faces. And I look forward to your Q&A and feedback. My challenge question today is focused on sort of next step for my business to scale, which is launching an online course or an online solution in some way, and I'll get to that. The feedback I'm looking for the group is, what are some of the differentiators or experiences you've had in either pursuing an online course, attending one, thinking about doing that for your business. And I have included some insights that if you are considering, hopefully it's helpful. But this is one of the questions that I'm hoping to answer is what really makes it stand out. And so I'll talk through my business a little bit, where I hope this fits in the business model. And then I'd love to get some feedback. And so for folks who do not know me, the company that I founded ages ago, it seems like, it's really dedicated to helping individuals and companies figure out their passion and purpose. A lot of people say, pursue your passion, which is interesting advice. However, it's only true if you're good at the thing you're pursuing. So I can be passionate about being a great chef, but there's not a future for me in that. Right? So my passion is around helping people clarify their message, their mission, their why. And my purpose is to help bring that to life by moving the needle on their visibility and impact. And so, as I said, I founded my company April 27th, 2012. And so I've visited this group a few times as I pursue pivoting or adding something large to my business. So not a whole lot of new news there. Yes, we're 11 years old. So the problem that my business solves, one of the things that I think many of you probably resonate with, when we go to think about our personal brand, whether it's figuring out your why, getting feedback, thinking about your LinkedIn profile or a resume or a bio or who your audience is or what's your actual expertise, it's very hard to do on your own. Right? It's very hard to do self-reflection without input from others. And the way to go about doing that also needs to be done in a structured way. And so just like a train goes faster with train tracks, we have a 6-step approach where we help people figure out their why and figure out their company's purpose, and then be able to deliver that in a powerful, authentic way. So it's not about becoming famous, it's about becoming more intentional and more impactful for the people you work with and the people you lead. And so currently, what does my revenue model look like? There are 3 prongs. One is personal branding, where I do a lot of strategy work, and then I do a lot of retainer work. So I'll help execute on building someone's personal brand, whether it's 6 months, 12 months. Retainer approach works very well for me. I also do a lot of team and business branding. So thinking about how are your employees and your leadership team being a better face to the business to help grow your company from a revenue standpoint, but also from a talent standpoint. How are you retaining your people? A lot of organizations, especially since the pandemic, are stepping back and rethinking who they are and what that means for their people. And lastly, I do a lot of speaking. So whether it's through keynotes, workshops, I have some clients where I'll do a 12-month sort of program with their company, helping their employees. So I have a lot of material. And so that's why I'm looking at adding in courses, which again would be more like a drip coursework. So think about if you go back to get a certificate, you have several ways to engage, learn, be quizzed, etc. But I also have tons of talks that I've delivered, and I've gotten lots of positive feedback. So I'd like to make those available to people too. So as I think about an online platform and pursuing adding that to my business model, those are two of the things that I'm looking at deploying, whether it's coursework or talks I've delivered in the past. So what's my value proposition? So when I think about offering, again, most people come to me for not a LinkedIn profile, right? This is about what's your personal brand. Now, part of that is how are you showing up online? But it's really about, I've learned a lot in my career, and I want to be able to share that knowledge, right? Telepathy is not a strategy, as I tell my clients. And so the reason I'm doing the online coursework is really just to get more reach and share content in the hopes that it helps and resonates with people. So I'm not looking to do upsells, and my business coach will probably be really mad at me for hearing me say that. I am really looking at deploying content to help people. Who are my audience? Leaders and executives who really understand that they do need to be known. If you go back up one more, sorry, I'm not quite done with that slide. Thank you. I realized my audience comment was misleading. But the idea is that for people who care about being themselves, sharing what they've learned, right? Because we learn most from mistakes. Success is the word teacher. And really thinking about what's your why. A lot of people, I think, in the workforce, in the community, period, are all stepping back and thinking about, why am I here? What am I going to do next? I think the pandemic allowed us all to step back and think about, my time is valuable. What do I want to do with that now? My differentiator, so I do have a background in branding and marketing at Fortune 500, 2 degrees in HR management. That simply means I have a lot of thoughts on people strategy, organizational change, communication. So thinking about how our words matter and how they influence others. I have delivered hundreds of talks, coached over 1,000 people, and I have 2 books that I've written that it's content I can leverage in this coursework or in talks and have leveraged. So next slide now. My target audience, like I said, it could be individuals. It could also be a company wanting to deliver a course. You know, Udemy is a great platform where companies can use that, or LinkedIn Learning. So it might be, you know, putting content out on different platforms based on the audience too. I think that's a question I would throw out there to the group. Right now, I do a lot of in-person events, networking, social media, but most of my referrals come from either people hearing me speak or referrals from past clients. So competitors, I think a lot of people, when they hear a personal brand or brand strategist, lots of times they might confuse me with an executive coach. I know people are executive coaches, and that's a singular skill, and that's not what I am. My focus is really on helping individuals and companies figure out their reputation, their strategy, and be the best that they can be for their audience in a way that generates visibility, impact, and hopefully revenue. Another competitor might be a digital marketing agency. So someone who is doing social media content creation, who is looking at messaging, who is building websites. Again, I collaborate with them. So although I have them a competitor here, if someone doesn't know about me, they might go to a digital agency or a brand agency, but that's not the same as working with me. And then career coaches. I am not a career coach. Again, that's a unique skill. Do I happen?
Jen, we lost you really quick. Are you?
Yes.
You're back.
I'm back. How long? What did you lose me for?
Maybe 15
10
seconds.
seconds.
Okay. I would just say, just to recap the last 10 seconds, I'm not a career coach. So I might work with them, but again, my approach is all about how do I help people figure out their why and then decide what they want to go do next. But if we think about credibility, it's about building credibility. All right, go ahead and go past that. So here are some things that, I've been researching, launching an online course. These are some of the things I am looking for, which I think anyone who's looking for online, considering launching an online course, these are important things to think through. One is, are you using a platform that has a list or that you need to build a list for. Like those are important things to be able to, if you're on Udemy or Skillshare or LinkedIn Learning, you're accessing an existing audience. If you're using a platform like Teachable or others, you really have to build out that pipeline. Ease of use. I do not want to spend my life building templates for an online course. So something that is turnkey or plug and play, that has lots of templates for launch. That doesn't mean that I don't have to create things. I certainly do. But where it's ready to go, I think is an important thing to consider. I do want this to be interactive and engaging. So this is a question that I think is one of the most important, and I'll come back to that. But multiple types of content and ways to engage. Video storage is a big one, right? So if we think about from a process standpoint, if you're creating video to go with a course, are you creating it and then editing it and then putting it on YouTube and then embedding it in a platform? Or do you have a platform that automatically incorporates video storage? So it's a one and done kind of thing. Does it allow for communities? So like I said, I really want to build a community, potentially even have cohorts. I really love educating and helping people just know more so they can make better choices. Like I said before, some of the things I'm considering is a standalone versus a drip course. So if I've given talks in the past, I want to sell that as a one-off thing. If I'm talking about how to build your personal brand, that could be 10 to 20 videos and a longer course. I do want a platform that does pre-sales. So there are platforms where you can do pre-sales to get a sense of, is this of interest? Certificates, rewards, obviously payment processing. I think we're all very mobile, so having that content available via an app is important. And as I said, a platform that's interactive. So as I wrap up, I think this last slide maybe will help. Here's one example of a course I might have. Define, design, differentiate yourself on LinkedIn. Who would it be for? Executives, entrepreneurs, leaders. My question for you guys would be, what would you consider a great experience? So, one of the certificate programs I did a few years ago was with Kellogg, with their sort of brand strategy, to go see, well, what is Kellogg teaching around brand strategy that's new? And they had a great mix of online courses, live sessions, recordings, group engagement, deliverables, quizzes. And so there was a multi-pronged experience. So for you as business owners, what would you want? What do you have bandwidth for? What options would you want? And I think what would be the proof you'd want to see to sign up? And what would be some barriers to launch that I'm missing? So I'll wrap up there. But those are, hopefully that's enough to be dangerous to think about what questions might you have for me as I think about launching an online course? What would really be meaningful for you? And I think our conversation today hopefully helps people on the call and more broadly too, because I know we only have so much time. Thank you, John Rudenberg, for the silent applause. Even though there's a mute on Scott.
Thank you so much, Jen.
All right, I think John Rudenberg, you are emceeing. So what questions do you want to start off with? I know John Foster has his hand raised also.
I couldn't unmute. I apologize. So 10 minutes ago, the power just came back on. We've had no power. I had to go to my phone. So, John Foster, you're up.
Oh, thank you. Well, Jen, I got to tell you, this I don't want to say saved me from a coffee with you, but I still like to do that. But
Thank you from a coffee with me. How should I read into that? I don't know. I don't have any questions, John Foster.
Well, I've been wanting to have coffee, but this was a wonderful summary of what you do, and certainly the expansion into online courses is, I think, something. A lot of people, there are a lot of people have done it. There are a lot of people who are looking to do it to expand their breadth, if you will. And I guess two things. One is I had a great experience with an online course through eCornell in the whole food plant-based nutrition, and that you could take a look at that just as far as some ideas around what they did. I enjoyed that experience. The other thing which I'll throw out there, and maybe Ken Portnoy will touch on this, and that is AI and the use of AI to develop your course, help develop your course content. Because there is a lot of stuff out there. I was playing around with some last night, generated presentations in 15 seconds, and it was like, so anyway, I just throw that out there, and greatly appreciate you stepping up the presentation. As I said, I'll enjoy coffee number 2.
That's good. I definitely want to make sure we have coffee. It's interesting. Like I appreciate the AI and Chat GPT. It's a bit tricky as a personal brand strategist to use AI to create content. I have a moral dilemma with that.
Well,
but I do like using it as a sort of complementary, like doing research, shorting or something like that.
Well, I was thinking about using it on your content to help you.
Got it. So take my content and
take your content, run it through to divide it up in the various platforms or courses that you want to do. That's what I was.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. That's helpful clarification. I appreciate that.
Good thought. Excuse me, Scott Alford.
Thank you so much, Jen. So I'm really interested in something like a LinkedIn course. So I think that less of a question and more of a comment. I think that LinkedIn is incredibly important and is underutilized by a lot of different brands. So what ways would a LinkedIn course that you're looking to pull together help differentiate your student from others in the marketplace? Like, what is the perspective or POV that you're bringing to the table? I'd love to learn more.
That's a great question. As researching existing LinkedIn courses and what's out there are definitely buckets of LinkedIn for individual, LinkedIn for business and sales and BD. And what I'm going to do is take a couple of those courses just to see what people are teaching, because there are anywhere from 15 to 20 courses, and they may be small, 10, 20 minutes. But what I also want to integrate is my framework and structure that I utilize to coach people, which helps, I think, start at a broader perspective and then come down into how to use the tool the best. But we're only as good as what we bring to a tool. So if I teach people how to use LinkedIn, but they don't know why, then that's not, I don't think, as helpful as it could be.
Yep.
So that hopefully that answers your question a little bit around, it's a blend of the technical, like, yes, here's how you use LinkedIn. But before you go crazy, who are you? Why are you on it? What do you want to talk about? Who needs to know about you?
Ken Portnoy.
Jen, it is great to learn in greater depth about the stuff that you do. Very, very impressive. Wonderful stuff. This an idea that you might want to try and look into. You were asking about video storage. TechSmith is a vendor that has specialized in academics. And so they provide a suite of tools, including video storage and presentation, as well as a video editor. I want to mention a couple of features of their video functionality. If you use their platform, they will allow you to put tables of contents into a video, as well as scorable quizzes built into their video editing platform, because it's designed for academics. I haven't seen anything from them about use of those functions outside of academics, and I don't know about compatibility with some of the other platforms. Second thing is, I'm sure you're familiar with this. The elephant in the marketplace is Kajabi, right? And so I'm in a Kajabi community forum. And the thing that's interesting about the Kajabi community forum is, like many other social media platforms, that's where you see all the negative stuff. So Kajabi is a technical marvel with technical bugs and nuances and things that make people crazy, apparently. A very complicated environment to integrate all of that whole stack in your list. But anyhow, I wanted to mention Kajabi. I wanted to mention it's TechSmith Camtasia is their video editor. and Screencast is their video platform.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I have been looking at about 20 different platforms. So Kajabi is one of them. And there's a lot of similarity between them all, but there are some really key strategic and tactical differences. But I love your point about looking at what are people saying they don't like. So I need to make sure I include that in my research. Thank you.
Can we just, are you back, Jen? You froze for a second. Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you, Ken, for your feedback. I'll make sure to look at what are people saying about the platforms that they like or don't like.
Reggie, then David Hillson.
Hi, Jen. Very excited about this development. Definitely think that you should do this. I think for me, when it comes to online course, I think it needs to be something that I can do without too much labor, and I need to be able to, do it for 15 to 30 minutes and pick back up where I left off. So being able to have it in a package that fits right, with the busy lifestyle, I think that's definitely a consideration. I feel like you have so much quality content that's just out there. I almost want to see something new and like revolutionary. I realize you can just pull from stuff that you've already done. And since I'm kind of familiar with your content, like I would want something new and different. And it can obviously be inspired, by that stuff. But I think the way you frame it and package it, it should be presented in a new way with a fresh take. So for someone that's not as familiar with your content, they wouldn't have that issue. But for people that are familiar with what you do and how well you do it, you want to kind of put some kind of new spin on it. And I think because I know you, access to you and how much of that you would allow and would be part of some kind of course is something that you want to think about. Like I think the courses where like I get a chance to, talk to the creator, even if it's just like a one session, I think that's really valuable, particularly in this day and time where there is so much just online. I can watch a video, I can sign up for this thing for free. I think if I'm able to leverage the course in order to get a chance to talk to you, I think that's extremely valuable. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much for that, Reggie. I appreciate that. And I love your take on generating a new topic. I think as I was researching LinkedIn or other topics I might speak about, there's a lot of content already out there. So how do I start off with a differentiated value add and material is really helpful insight. Thank you.
David, then John Norse.
Well done, Reggie. I'm giving you props first for pushing the envelope there. And Jen, as always, nothing about you ever disappoints. I noticed you referenced Kellogg when talking about a previous course that you had completed. And it is great that you got feedback from people that have taken online courses before I talk. But I note that Kellogg has a pretty strong brand recognition. And so when you're drawing from something like that, it's hard to draw similarities for what you hope to accomplish. And I think what you hope to accomplish, you sort of dropped it, and that is your ability to sort of create your own community of people that are inspired by this work and are committed to continuing to evolve and improve and help others do the same. So I am curious how you think the the coursework will lead towards the community. And I do think the community is a big piece of this. You also referenced the fact that you're getting a lot of clients from your talks. And so the big question, going back to what Reggie said, is could you plant something in the talks that say, hey, if you find this course, you can get the answer to this, magic bean or, whatever it was. The other thing that you mentioned is the fact that you do a lot of retainer work. And so I am curious whether the courses can actually enhance the work you do on a retainer basis so that you actually have courses that say, you've completed the task. This is what you're going to face at the 1 year mark. This is what you're going to face at the 3 year mark. This is what you're going to face at the 5 year and 10 year, and sort of have things that are unique to people along that specific journey. But again, I'd go back to answering the question of why. I know why you want to do it, but why does the user want to engage with it? What's the objective for them? Because just one incremental piece of personal improvement may not move the needle, but if you're really driving to something great, I think it could. So I would just make sure that the objective of why is really pronounced and clear.
Well, thank you for that. I love having you on these calls. You've made Reggie raise his hand again. So I think clearly you're provoking some thinking. I would be using coursework to augment for clients, but obviously it'd be free for them as a client. They're paying me in other ways, but they'd have access to all of that content. One of the questions I've had is if you use a platform like Mighty Network, where you can build an online community, you can distribute a ton of new content like real time live. And maybe that's the way to go as opposed to doing courses. But I think what I also need help on, and what your question is reminding me, is just to clarify the unique audiences. And I can start in one place and then scale or grow content and audiences from there. Because some of the coursework would be for more potentially people junior in their career, although it could be for executives. Whereas the online community might be a very different intent or purpose. So I appreciate your thought-provoking commentary.
Thank you. And before I put my hand down, and I know it's off topic, but where does podcasting fit in your future?
I've always thought about doing podcasting. I do think whether it's through an online community platform or a podcast platform, I love having discussions with other thought leaders. And so that does show up in here somewhere. I don't know what that looks like. I think there's a little bit of, I don't want to say podcast, people getting tired of it, because there's lots of people who still listen to podcasts. But I want to be very thoughtful on if that's the platform I go after, because it's also, it can be a lot of work or a lot of money to pay other people to do it. So it's less work. Good question.
Mr. Norse.
Good morning. Hey, Jen, happy belated on
Thank
Veterans Day. Might be a little random in these, and David highlighted a couple things, but how you do, and what Reggie was saying, how you develop the content. Is there going to be like pre-recorded and then some live stuff? Is a podcast going to be part of it? What's the length of those? Because one of the things I wrote down is demographic. I mean, obviously, if you have a younger 20 to 30-year-old you're trying to attract, they may be wanting to just listen to pre-recorded. Old people like me, at least I'd like to be on a live event. So I think putting that together might be, one of the ideas of how you deliver it and engage them. Another thing I was thinking about, you could develop a curriculum with, like David was saying, something with tests or checkpoints, and when they get through certain milestones that they get to the next level, so you truly make it like a learning path or course. I could definitely see a path for that success as well. But cool stuff, always doing cool stuff. You are.
That was very wise, Yoda. Thank you for that. I think there are platforms that allow it to be interactive, where you can do pre-recorded, then a live session, a quiz, et cetera, and even pre-recorded video where people can still interact with video. So that's a big decision influencer for me in which platform. Because I agree with you, I don't want it to be an online course where all you get are 5 videos. I want to be able to have a live session to work through some of the assignments, which is what I really liked about Kellogg and their sort of exec MBA certificate program, is that blend of, yes, it's live, and you can also do it on your own, and you can chat with people who are going through the same process.
Yeah, just as I'm in a leadership class right now. We meet now, again, it's geographic for you, but we meet once a month in Richmond, but we have homework throughout the in-betweens of reading. We have like 4 books we're reading. There's some online content. There's exercises that are online. There's, you know what I mean? It's this whole culmination of various resources, say, but it's all timelined within 6 months, the class is over. But yeah, anything I can share would be, of course, want to help you.
No, thank you for that. I appreciate the insight. I think that's a question too, folks can maybe think about and put in chat. If you did I think like most things, there needs to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. We don't want to have coursework that goes on forever. None of us would have gone to school if that were the case. So is it a 6-week thing, a 4-week thing, 8 weeks, right? Something to think about for you and your business. If you do learning right now, what's that time frame or time window?
Excellent. Mr. Portnoy, then Mr. Holmes, then Mr. Rutenberg.
So first, another clue, you may very well be aware of my friend and mentor, JD Gershbein on LinkedIn. Are you familiar with him? If not,
I don't want to offend anybody's feelings.
yeah.
I will be by the end of the day.
So anyhow, JD is all about LinkedIn differentiation with his recent publication of the LinkedIn Style Guide.
Mm.
And you were talking about, how do I differentiate this thing? Well, JD's view is you differentiate it by being you and being out there in the way that only you can be. So that's the first piece. The second is I'm not fully understanding the business context for this outgrowth from what you're doing. The motivation is to get the material out there. That's a kind of personal motivation, but I'm not sure about the business roots of that. At one point, it even seemed as though you would do this for fun and not for profit. And if that's the case, that's one thing. But if it's, I'm doing this because in the next 10 years, I need $3 million in order to move to Aruba, that's a whole different approach to building the business. And I'm not clear where you're coming from.
So I'll answer the last question first, or maybe it's the most important question you asked. I don't want to do it for free. I do want to have it as a revenue stream. Personally, what irritates me is when I go to take a course or purchase something and I have to get through 5 slides of upsells before I actually get out of it and get some insight and content. I don't like that. Now I know that works for a lot of people and they make a ton of money. Fantastic. My personal brand and for what I like or don't like, I don't like that. Just like I don't like it when people put half of a blog on LinkedIn and if I want to read the rest, I've got to go to their website. Don't make me do that. Right. So for me, I do want to deliver content. I want it to be affordable and I want it to reach as many people as possible. That was one of the reasons I wrote my first book, was because I knew I couldn't help as many people in person, but I also knew I didn't want to go on the road and be not that I would be a Tony Robbins, but someone speaking all the time in different cities everywhere. My goal is to help over 100,000 people each year. One of the ways to do that would be through this type of material. But I don't want to lose who I am while I do it. I want to be authentic. So I appreciate your comment.
So would it be correct to say that what you want to do is you want to upgrade the medium from 10 years ago where it was possible and worthwhile to write a book, put it out there, flog the book. But now there's all of these alternative media that allow you to accomplish the same thing with different tools and different approaches. You're trying to bridge that over.
Yep. And I think it's also a place where I could do live updates on a perspective of a real event that's occurred related to someone's personal brand. What do we take it from this, right? It shouldn't be static material. It should be content that's constantly helping people learn and make more intentional choices.
Reg.
Thank you. Great,
Thanks.
great,
Steve.
great, great.
Two quick thoughts. So one idea is like how you can add some kind of gamification to it, you know. So maybe there's like levels to it, you know, you get badges. Like I don't know, we could talk about that, but just people like that makes something that can feel academic, not feel academic and be more fun. And the other idea I had was like, you know, so I didn't know about your HR background. I thought that was interesting. And, you know, why not create a course that is for large companies? And, you know, so I personally see a lot of, you know, LinkedIn guru type people out there. And I know you could do that. But what I don't see a lot of is like living the brand, you know, living the company brand, like embodying that, like how to make the values that exist on the wall in the break room, like part of your life and your work, and why that's meaningful and valuable for the company and the professional. For example, so, you know, why not create this course for these large companies and sell it to them, and then they bring it to their large teams, you know, and you're doing the same work. I feel like that's less competitive, and that could be something that like is sort of evergreen. You know, every year they bring in, you know, new people to their company, and this training is like an essential part of their onboarding or whatever. You know, so I feel like that's another route if you don't want to do it for the individual professional. Just sell it to the big companies, you know, and it will have value and ongoing value for them. So it's an idea.
No, I appreciate that. That is something I do now, but it's customized obviously based on business. So thinking about how to deploy that in a way that companies can see more broadly, but then it could lead to other engagements, I think is a great point. And I'm a big fan of gamification. I'm level 46 as of yesterday. So, you know, as in I turned 46 for anybody who's not a gamer. Not that I'm a gamer, that's been a long time, but yes, level 46. So I appreciate that.
So Jen, on your march to the big 5-0, you're still young enough, right? To just want to be sober for a moment. It's rare, but for the audience of 22-year-olds first emerging out of college, who have suffered through the pandemic of a weird college, I think is a great young audience to capture. And I love what Reggie said about linking it to the company who's hiring 30 rookies, 22-year-olds, and they need to learn what you teach. I love gamification because I won't sit for 30 minutes and listen to anything. I find I'd rather read what a video says because I don't want to sit for 15 minutes when I can read it in 4. And so something has to hold me, which would be an exercise, as Mr. Norse said, or some kind of game that produces a result that teaches a lesson. And I urge you to focus on the 22 to 25s who are just out as an initial cool cohort that I'm sure hasn't really learned about personal branding and imaging. Those are my thoughts. And thank you for stepping forward, by the way, as always.
Happy to step forward on my march to 50. Thank you. That was very sobering. Next fun question.
Okay, Norson, Scott, and John. John, then Scott.
Hey, Jen, I'm going to piggyback on Rutenberg's first good idea in 15 years. I think if you targeted graduates, like he's saying, recent graduates, I would tell you, and again, I'm offering to help in a sense. I think kids that get out of college, most of them don't have any sales skills, and they need sales skills. They got to sell. I got to sell myself to the employer. I got to, if I'm an accountant, I could crunch numbers. At some point, I got to find clients. The point I'm making is, I think if you were to target those kids with some kind of program that would give them the ability to start developing their own identification, their own branding, what they're good at, what it maybe even inspires them to add, certifications and education to enhance themselves, because there's some kind of platform that in a sense is competitive, where you realize that other people are doing things. And anyway, I think that would be an interesting demographic to target, just to piggyback on what Rutenberg was saying. Good
Great.
job, Johnny. The Johns have it.
You bet. All right, we'll have to go over to Scott, even though the Johns have it. Mr. Alfred. And then Mr. John Foster.
Well, I'm only going to echo what the Johns have said, so you can think of me as the ghost, just transitioning between the Johns. But I will say that there's a new emergence of young people that are really interested in entrepreneurship, and a lot of them don't have sales and marketing experience, and a lot of them are just turning to other young people who are like, hey, this is how I built this business. They aren't, but there are a lot of really well established, like, given your knowledge, your expertise, I think that's an energy that you could tap into. And a lot of it is on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and similar platforms. I guess the other one is Discord. That's almost too young for me, but if you could tap into those groups of TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Discord, there's a ton of energy around these topics, and there's a hunger for it. One of the influencers is always talking about young people between 20s and 30s. Like, don't invest in the S&P 500, invest in the S&M 500. Now, I don't totally agree with the sentiment, but he's right that a lot of people start thinking about investing before they actually realize that the skills that they need that are more meaningful. So, something to think about.
John Foster.
Thank you, John Alford. I appreciate it. Jen, I guess everybody kind of said what I was going to say, so I'm probably repeating a little bit, but my experience in teaching a couple classes at George Mason a couple times a year around, LinkedIn and networking, most of these kids don't have a clue. And to me, it goes back to the why question, which I was fascinated that you brought up. And that I think that's what's missing. And so, anything you can do to help that demographic, because there's a huge, they're lost. I mean, I see it all the time in teaching, graduating seniors. So anyway, everybody kind of made the point, but I just, again, I appreciate what you're doing, and look forward to seeing let's see how it grows.
Well, I think for folks who are talking about the younger generation, and thank you for not saying because I'm so old I can help more, wisdom is a good thing. But I do think many of us still suffer from identity crisis, right? Who are we? I think for graduates and for folks in college, or especially the last few years, where they didn't have a chance to really connect with people as much as they would have liked to. And so they are feeling a bit lost. I think people in the workforce are also feeling that way, trying to figure out, wow, I just had 2.5 years at home, figuring out that I love spending time with my family. I like the flexibility. Now what? And there's a huge disconnect between executives and employees in getting back to work. And there's a huge misperception around what does productivity look like, micromanaging, helping people figure out, can we just trust them and let them be themselves? And so there are a lot of really interesting, timely topics, I think, to Reggie's point, that could explore some deeper conversation. And maybe that's a place where I start. I appreciate all the feedback.
Absolutely. Tess.
So having a 21-year-old rising senior in college and having older children that have already established careers from ages 30 to 41. What I've seen is that with this younger demographic of the kids that are in college, especially the ones that started during the pandemic, like our son, is that some of the, for we elder people, we had more real connections, and that, you know, it's easy for them. They see their connections are basically by a phone. So that there's a different kind of perception of reality in there. So for them, it's super easy when there's a new template out or there's a new whatever whim, they like change and morph. And so that's why I feel like they don't have that identity. They never really get a chance to establish it because it's so quick. And then we have one that's getting ready to go to college this fall. A granddaughter that's getting ready to go to college this fall. Again, you know, that demographic grew up with phones and grew up with videos all the time. So for them, trying to establish what is their identity, when I even asked just simple questions of our granddaughter during her graduation party this weekend, it was kind of like, well, this is what I think I want to do, but I'm not really sure. So it's hard to get that. It's hard to get in there, you know, because they look at us like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we used to actually walk, you know, over to somebody's desk and go talk to somebody when they didn't understand something. They're like, if they don't understand something, they're either looking at a chat bot or a video or
Google.
somebody's, or Google. I mean, we didn't have those things. So I think the hardest part for branding for these younger people is they don't understand themselves because they're always changing. Whatever's new, that's what they're in. So I think that's going to be probably the challenge is just trying to hone them in, because they'll be, okay, yeah, this is great. This is who I am right now. But, you know, in 3 days, no, I want to be that.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
So Jen, I don't see any other questions at the moment. And you're usually the one who asks the very big question. And maybe we should ultimately retire that very big question. But in the interim, given everything you've heard, what can 1 million cups help you with that hasn't yet been touched today?
Well, I got so much input from each of you. So thank you for all of that feedback. And I'm definitely saving the chat and watching the recording again and again. You know, I think hold me accountable. So part of the reason I spoke up today was to put it out in the universe. And so, you know, I'll sign up to come on the schedule 8 weeks from now for an update. But I think in the meantime, I'm sure I'll be reaching out to each of you to have one-to-ones. I did read somewhere like you shouldn't launch a beta course, you should just go. And so, you know, stay tuned for what that looks like.
It's exciting, really exciting. Congratulations and thank you for today. It's great. Scott, back to you, sir.
All right. Do we have any announcements that we should be making for today?
Yeah, so I would just remind folks, we are meeting the week of July 4th. We'll be meeting in person for networking that Wednesday at Mason Enterprise Center. So if you're around, pop in and chat and say hi. If you're interested in presenting, I think we do have openings next week. And
I have a presenter.
For
We have
next
a
week?
presenter for
Yay.
next week.
All right, then too bad, so sad for everybody. Next week's already taken, but there are more weeks coming up that are available.
Absolutely. Please present.
I think, Tess, if you just want to share the event slide, that would be great.
Sure. Get that up. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Also, I'm sorry to interrupt. Please put
Sure.
your contact information in the chat especially if you're newer to our group and we don't have your contact information. Thank you, sorry.
No problem.
Good call.
Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Or am I? Okay, cool. I had a little blip there, so I could not hear for a second. Let's try this one more time. Okay, sorry about that. So we do have quite a few in-person events in the Fairfax area. If you are around, actually today there's actually an in-person networking luncheon over at Henri Beard. That's in Old Town Fairfax, not at the Manassas location. Also, a couple of things that are coming up. Brazil is having his business expo. Ken, are you going to that? I think Ken mentioned that last week that he would be going to that. That's on Friday.
I
Also,
won't just be going. You can come see me exhibit.
oh, perfect. So everybody go visit Ken. And
Absolutely.
everybody else that
If
and all the
anybody
other
would
vendors
like
as
to
well.
attend, I have vouchers for free admission. DM
that's
me,
even
email
better.
me. Since I know you, I'll let you in, but I got to get the I got to get the information to Brazil.
No problem. Thanks, Ken. Also, the City of Fairfax Parks and Rec will have their Rock the Block, and there is a local market space that is there. So support local businesses and check them out. Old Town Fairfax, there will be 6 restaurants there that will be participating in a summer crawl that is hosted by the OTFBA, the Fairfax EDO, and the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce. And then, of course, you can find all of these on the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce website under events. They are all nice and neatly done, and the registration links are also right on their events page, so check that out. And then, of course, we've got the Veterans Business Pop-Up that is in the Woodbridge area. That's every weekend, definitely on Saturday and Sundays, and then they are opening up some additional programming, I believe, on Thursday evenings and Friday evenings as well. I think one of them is an open mic night, and on Friday, I believe it's a combination where they do have a small amount of vendors on Friday as well. So if you would check those out and support your local businesses, that would be great. I'll turn it back over to Scott.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tess. So if you're interested, as I said before, in joining the organizing team and developing in your leadership and entrepreneurial skills, we would love to have you. So our goal is to engage more deeply every week. So we would love to have you. Please mark this on your calendars for every week. And again, as Jen brought up, we meet in person at the Mason Enterprise Center the first week of every month, but we also are online at the same time. We do a hybrid meeting, and then the rest of the time we meet online. And feel free, if you're interested in becoming an organizer and joining our half-an-hour organizers meeting, reach out to me, Jen, Tess, John, Ken, Melinda, any of us, if you are interested. And then follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Insta, all the good stuff. And feel free to follow the QR code on the screen now if you're interested in following any of those social media. And with that, thank you so much. We know that entrepreneurship is a lonely journey, but we are very appreciative that you have allowed us to be a part of your journey. So let's keep building together, and we invite you to join us every Wednesday.
That was great, guys.